I think it's pretty clear that we and China have very different views on a whole host of very important topics. And I was just writing down a list here, but everything from how we deal and welcome minorities in our civilization, how we believe about diversity, what we think about single-party rule, how we would deal with Taiwan, for instance. Our perspective on censorship is very different. Our perspective on human rights is very, very different. The rule of law in our nation and their nation is very different. The South China Sea is an area of great conflict. The list goes on and on. We have a number of things that are very different between the perspectives of a free people in the United States of America and the leadership of China. And so I wonder whether these Confucius Institutes are part of an influence campaign by the Chinese government to shape attitudes in the minds of the American children, the coming generations, as to those kinds of differences. Is this really a propaganda effort, a mind-shaping effort of our young people being carried out through the auspices of these Confucius Institutes? So I ask for your perspective and whether you believe that's the case.
I would say generally, Senator, first of all, thank you for the question. I would say generally the State Department supports international educational exchange. We support Americans learning critical languages. As you may know, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, thanks to congressional support, conducts a number of programs to teach Americans languages critical to our national security, including Mandarin Chinese. We have the Gilman Fellowship for Young Americans, and we also have the National Security Language Initiative, which supports both high school and college students to go overseas and study languages critical to the United States national security.
That makes all the sense in the world, to study other languages and to learn about other cultures. But the question I have is whether the Chinese government is selecting individuals, funding for individuals into our educational institutions with the intent not just of letting us learn an important global language, but also and a different culture, but also to gain a perspective on a host of issues where they and we have different points of view, whether this is in effect an influence campaign, whether it's being financed as an influence campaign to shape public opinions of our young people.
Thank you for the question. I would say that in the course of the work that we did looking at Confucius Institutes, the one thing that really popped out for us was the variety of activities that they do. You know, you certainly heard about the language training, and I think as Ranking Member Carper talked about in his statement, there are a variety of other cultural events that they focus on, holiday celebrations, cooking events, things like that. We didn't really focus on questions that you were focused on there, but I think that it's notable, the variety of activities that they perform.
Yeah, I'm not sensing anyone jumping to the bait on that, and perhaps we don't have information about that. But I guess that's the question in my mind, which is, you know, I would welcome the chance to learn about a foreign language, the culture of another people, but it would be a very different matter to have people coming in from another nation that has such dramatically different perspectives than we do in our country. If their intent in coming to our country is to inculcate those attitudes and views among our young people. And I would hope that there's a way for us to be able to determine whether that's occurring and the extent to which it's occurring, and to provide, if it is occurring, to provide a warning to educational institutions about the potential concern that obviously be attached to something of that nature. You've also spoken about reciprocity and the opportunity for us to be able to share our culture and language in their nation. That's apparently been very difficult to obtain, the kind of reciprocity that we had hoped, and I would anticipate that the degree to which we are able to welcome and provide visas and so forth to those that want to become part of Confucius Institutes here would be gauged to a certain degree to the kind of welcome we receive there, and wonder whether we are taking action to make sure that there is a, if you will, reciprocity here, with the degree of welcome that we have there. Is that the case, or is there more to be done there?
Because I'm here to speak about what we do in China, when we are harassed or when things are blocked or upset, we regularly protest to the Chinese government that we expect the same treatment here that we give to your embassy in the United States. And so we regularly make those protests. How successful they are, that's another matter, but we do regularly approach them. I've done it myself, actually, when I've been visiting there, and make it very clear that we expect that.
Yeah, and that is, I think, wise and effective. I would also suggest that in some respects we might respond in the same way with their requests that they respond to ours, which it's one thing to protest when they do things that we don't approve of. It's another thing to say, well, if you're going to do that to people that we're trying to encourage to be part of your system, why then we're going to do the same to yours. And that seems to concentrate the mind more than protest. Happy to return the time back to the ranking member or the chairman. I think my time is up.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comments, Senator Romney, and I think you are hitting the nail on the head. And I think the question is whether this Confucius Institute funding and the activities that they engage in is something that is consistent with our traditions here. And what we found in our report, of course, is that it is not. And the GAO found the same thing in their reporting.